Especially as we approach the election, immigration, migrants, and the border has become a center point of American politics. However, in this discussion, a barrage of misinformation and dehumanization has become present not only when we talk about the border, but the migrants at our border. In this video, I hope to dissect a couple of myths about migrants and the border. This video is an accompaniment to an article I wrote, so feel free to check out the article. There's a lot of parallels between the article and this video, but I hope you enjoy. So right here, we are at the Gateway International Bridge. It's right on my back. As you can see, there is clearly not an open border, right? Here we have one layer. This is about, I'd say, 12, 13 feet tall. There's barbed wire right behind that for anyone who wants to jump over. If you look a little more forward, on the back, you can see there's a barbed wire fence. That barbed wire fence stretches all the way to visibility. I don't see a place where there isn't. And then if you look even farther, you have the river and then another wall. So here we are in Mission, Texas. Behind me, you can see Reynosa. And you might be asking the question to yourself. Yes, the border is fortified along major cities with big walls and bridges with multiple layers of security to get through. However, what happens with border security when we arrive at a more rural land scheme? Well, I can promise you, border security remains fortified even in these rural areas. Behind me is the Rio Grande, although you can't see it, and in front of it there is an additional border wall. Additionally, about 20 miles out, there is yet another border wall waiting for any migrants that are trying to get through. And while those walls are there 24/7, obviously, there is Border Patrol trucks, helicopters, and blimps circling the area. So currently we're about 100 feet away from the border. At the border, there is obviously the border wall, along with a road that Border Patrol trucks are patrolling 24/7. Therefore, for a migrant to get through, they would have to cross the border wall, they would have to get past the Border Patrol trucks patrolling, they would have to cross this preserve, which could possibly be from 100 feet to multiple miles, right? It depends on where they're entering from. And then additionally, if they're going north, most major roads in Texas actually have border checkpoints about 50 to 100 miles north. So in essence, it is very, very, very difficult for migrants to enter illegally and unnoticed. So here we are in another rural area, and in the process of trying to achieve a holistic narrative of a border, I can't lie to you. Not every single inch of our border is covered by a wall. Back here, we're about a couple hundred feet from the Rio Grande, and there is no border wall. However, if we go a couple miles forward, there is that pre-wall that we did talk about, as well as if you go a couple miles that way, there is a border checkpoint, right? So there might not be a wall at every single inch of our border, but that's not stopping Border Patrol from doing a very thorough job of inspecting these areas. The myth that there is an open border and that there is an invasion of migrants at our border is a grave mischaracterization, and mostly false. The origin of this myth is that in 2023, CBP saw the most encounters at the border. However, this statistic does not directly correlate to illegal, quote-unquote, people in our country. Additionally, although we did see a slight uptick in unauthorized migration, some sources estimate that there's around 14 million people total that are in the United States unauthorized. This statistic is nowhere near the tens of millions that people have been claiming that have been sneaking into our border and invading our country. There are two major causes for this uptick in migration that we've been seeing. The first is that there's simply more people trying to enter the United States. There's more people trying to risk everything, get kidnapped by cartels, give up everything in their home and travel, right? Walk thousands of miles through the Darien Strait sometimes, right? There is more people willing to take the risk for better opportunity in the United States. U.S. authorities have actually been encouraging Mexican authorities to deport migrants from the north of Mexico to the south of Mexico. But even despite these efforts, right, there's so many migrants that are willing to take the risk, so many migrants that are struggling, that we're seeing more people at our border, period. This is not aided by our second reason, the fact that it is increasingly difficult for migrants to enter legally. Migrants want to enter legally. These are families, vulnerable people, people who want asylum, people who want a better future. They are not trying to enter the country illegally. They are trying to do the right thing. However, the pathway to do the right thing is increasingly difficult, right? The only way to enter the country legally is through a CBP One app on your cellular device. Wait times through this method are nearing 8 months, right? So 8 months waiting in tent encampments, in cartel-controlled areas. You might be pregnant. You might be getting chased by that cartel, right? So some of these people simply don't have 8 months. And the fact that we're expecting them to wait 8 months is completely unrealistic. It is also important to note that there is simply a lot of misinformation. Some of these migrants are traveling with information they found off TikTok. Some of them have been brought by a coyote from Latin America to the north, and it benefits the coyote to just drop them off at the river and say crossing is fine, right? These coyotes, they don't want to deal with migrants for 8 months, right? They're looking to make money. So they're just leaving these migrants at the border and telling them to cross, right? So not only is there a mass amount of misinformation, but there's a mass amount of desperation that is fueling the slight uptick in unauthorized migration.
If I'm an adult single male, for example, if I just come up to the border and say, I'm just going to swim across this river and show up in the United States and they're going to give me a house and a job, that's really just not the reality. In fact, there are a lot of obstacles to entry. If you get that appointment, you can present at the port of entry and you'll be processed by Border Patrol. They'll review any information that they can find about you, and so you're not guaranteed admission into the country if you have a checkered legal background, for example, have committed crimes or things like that. You can be denied entry or detained within the U.S. But if everything checks out, you can be released and paroled in the U.S. for a temporary amount of time.
So yes, we have seen a slight uptick in unauthorized migration. However, these numbers are being massively inflated and migrants are being dehumanized as we're not understanding the true cause of this uptick. And now that we're over here at the border, I think it's also important that we address this myth of fentanyl coming into our country. So there's this narrative that these fleeing migrants, the most desperate people probably in our country, their whole goal is also to bring in fentanyl. That is utterly false. Actually, 90% of fentanyl that comes into this country is brought by American citizens right over there with a U.S. passport in either trucks or other modes of transport into the border. It is estimated that 86% of fentanyl-related arrests at the border were American citizens, right? So only 14% of those people were migrants, 86% were American citizens. Lastly, of the 4,500 pounds of fentanyl seized at the border last year, only 5 of those pounds, again, out of 4,500 pounds, only 5 were seized from migrants, and the rest were American citizens who were bringing them from Mexico to the U.S. with a U.S. passport. Additionally, there is this myth that the people entering at our border are both stealing our welfare and living off it. But this could not be further from the truth. When it comes to people who are entering unauthorized, aka illegally, they are actually not eligible for any social security, and if they are found to be trying to get it, they will be deported. And despite how increasingly difficult it is for migrants to benefit from welfare, it is also forgotten that migrants actually feed the welfare program. Actually, just unauthorized migrants in the United States contribute $35.1 billion a year to welfare, while not getting a single penny of it back as they are unauthorized. Additionally, immigrants in general, including undocumented immigrants, contribute $382.9 billion in federal taxes and $196.3 billion in state and local taxes. So right, not only are migrants not eligible for most welfare programs, but they're actually, not only once they arrive here, but in the long term, contributing to a welfare program and making America stronger by the day.
I think one of the largest misconceptions is they're coming here to mooch, right? Layman's terms. They want to mooch off of the system. They want this, they want that. No, most of the people that walk in the doors are actually anxious to start working, to start adding to the economy. They want to help us grow here, or they want to educate themselves. They want to be a part of something great. And so it's not about coming here and mooching off of the system. Many of them ask us about taxes. You know, how do we pay taxes? How do we make that happen? You know, we want to participate. And so it's about teaching them that.
It is also a myth that the people entering our border are here to commit crimes. Most of the people about to enter the border or who have just entered are escaping gang violence. Some of them are even coming all the way over here to not have to join cartels. These people are not here to commit crimes.
The people that I'm encountering are fleeing the cartels.
Exactly.
They're victims of the cartels. They want to come here. They want to connect themselves. They want to work. They want to live a good life. They want to be able to be good contributing members of society in freedom. Because when they try to be good contributing members of society, where they're coming from, well, then they become victims of extortion.
Immigrants are 30% less likely to commit crimes than white U.S. citizens. Additionally, the incarceration rate for first-generation Americans has been below the average incarceration rate in the United States for over 70 years. Here we are outside a detention facility where migrants either entering legally or illegally are being processed. The conditions inside here are brutal. It is cold, migrants describe being abused, not being listened to. Most of the resources are in English, which they can't understand. So even though these migrants coming in aren't here to commit crimes, and some of them haven't even committed a crime, they've entered legally, they are treated like criminals inside these detention centers. In short, be careful about what you hear about the border and about the migrants at our border, especially if the comment is dehumanizing to migrants. Yes, immigration and the border needs to be revised in our country. However, there is no room for dehumanization and misinformation to take the centerpiece in this discussion. We must lead a reform of facts, the actual situation, and a compassion to migrants and the people who are seeking the American dream.